Imagine you're on a Navy destroyer in the Persian Gulf. Your radar picks up a contact, an anti-ship missile, Mach 0.9, sea skimming, 15 miles out. Your long-range missiles fire, they miss. Your medium-range missiles fire, they miss. The missile is now 2 miles away. You have 4.5 seconds. This is where Phalanx takes over. An autonomous robot that thinks faster than any human, sees in multiple spectrums, and fires 75 rounds per second of tungsten penetrator ammunition. It's called the close-in weapon system, the last line of defense. And when everything else fails, this is what stands between you and oblivion. May 17th, 1987. Persian Gulf. USS Stark, a guided missile frigate, is on patrol during the Iran-Iraq War. At 9:09 p.m., an Iraqi Mirage F-1 fighter jet fires 2 Exocet anti-ship missiles. The first one hits the Stark on the port side, punches through the hull, doesn't explode, but the rocket motor keeps burning, igniting fuel and ammunition inside the ship. 30 seconds later, the second missile hits. This one explodes. Massive fireball, 37 sailors dead, 21 wounded. Here's the thing. The Stark had weapons to defend itself. It had radar, it had missiles, it had a Phalanx system. But the Phalanx was in standby mode, not armed, not tracking. By the time the crew realized what was happening, it was too late. This wasn't the first warning. 5 years earlier, in 1982, the British destroyer HMS Sheffield was hit by a single Exocet during the Falklands War. 20 sailors killed. The ship sank 6 days later. The lesson was clear. Modern anti-ship missiles are fast, small, and deadly. They fly low to avoid radar. They approach at near supersonic speeds. And by the time you see them, you have seconds to react. The Navy needed something that didn't rely on human reaction time, something that could detect, track, and engage threats in milliseconds, something autonomous. Phalanx was already in service when the Stark was hit, but the Stark incident changed how the Navy used it. From that day forward, in combat zones, Phalanx stays on, locked, loaded, and ready to kill anything that gets too close. Phalanx looks like R2-D2 had a baby with a Gatling gun, and that's not far from the truth. At its core is the M61 Vulcan cannon, a 6-barrel 20mm rotary gun. Rate of fire, 4,500 rounds per minute. That's 75 rounds every second. But the gun is just the end effector. The real magic is the system. Phalanx has its own search radar. It scans 360 degrees, looking for anything moving toward the ship. Aircraft, missiles, small boats, anything. When it detects a potential threat, it switches to track mode. A second radar, pulse Doppler, locks onto the target. It calculates the target's speed, heading, and trajectory. It predicts where the target will be in the next fraction of a second. Then it fires. But here's the clever part. Phalanx doesn't just fire and hope. It tracks the rounds as they fly. The tracking radar sees both the target and the stream of bullets. If the bullets are missing, the computer adjusts the aim in real time. It walks the stream of fire onto the target. This is called closed-loop fire control. Radar tracks the target. Radar tracks the bullets. Computer calculates the error. Computer corrects the aim, all in milliseconds. The ammunition is specialized. 20mm rounds with depleted uranium or tungsten penetrators. They don't need to explode. At 75 rounds per second, the goal is to put a wall of metal in the path of the incoming missile. Each round weighs about half a pound. When 75 of them hit a Mach 0.9 missile in 1 second, the missile disintegrates. But here's the most important feature. Phalanx is fully autonomous. In automatic mode, it doesn't need permission to fire. It detects the threat. It evaluates the threat based on speed, heading, and proximity. It decides to engage, and it fires, all without a human in the loop. Because humans are too slow. A supersonic missile approaching at Mach 1 covers 1,125 feet per second. At 2 miles out, you have less than 10 seconds. By the time a human analyzes the situation and gives the order, the missile has already hit. Phalanx reacts in under 2 seconds from detection to firing. That's the difference between life and death. Phalanx has fired in anger, multiple times, and it works. February 25th, 1991, Gulf War, USS Jarrett, a frigate operating in the Persian Gulf. An Iraqi Silkworm missile, a massive anti-ship cruise missile, is inbound. The ship's long-range defenses fire. Miss. The missile keeps coming. Phalanx locks on, fires. The missile is shredded at close range. Debris rains into the ocean 1,500 yards from the ship. First confirmed combat kill for Phalanx. Under 5 seconds from detection to destruction. But Phalanx isn't perfect, because sometimes it kills the wrong thing. Operation Desert Storm, again. USS Missouri, a battleship, is providing naval gunfire support. Nearby, the destroyer USS Jarrett has its Phalanx active. An Iraqi Silkworm missile is fired at the Missouri. The British destroyer HMS Gloucester shoots it down with a Sea Dart missile. But the debris from the destroyed missile is still flying toward the Missouri. Jarrett's Phalanx sees the debris, fast-moving object, heading toward a friendly ship. It locks on and fires, but it doesn't hit the debris. It hits the Missouri's radar-absorbent chaff cloud that was deployed as a decoy. No damage, but it shows the limitation. Phalanx can't tell the difference between a missile and debris, or between a missile and chaff. It sees a fast-moving radar return, and it shoots. That's the price of autonomy, speed over precision, survival over perfection. But when it works, it's spectacular, and it works most of the time. The Navy loved Phalanx so much, they put it everywhere. Over 900 systems installed on ships worldwide. But then someone had an idea. If Phalanx can protect ships from missiles, can it protect bases from mortars and rockets? Enter CRAM, Counter-Rocket, Artillery, and Mortar. Iraq and Afghanistan, mid-2000s. U.S. bases were getting hammered by mortar and rocket attacks. Insurgents would fire a few rounds from a truck, then disappear. The problem, by the time you hear the launch, the rounds are already in the air. You have seconds before impact. Conventional defenses were useless. So the Army took Phalanx, mounted it on a trailer, upgraded the software to track ballistic projectiles instead of missiles, and deployed it to Iraq. The system detects incoming mortar or rocket fire, calculates the trajectory, predicts the impact point. If it's going to hit inside the protected zone, Phalanx fires. It can't stop every round, but it can destroy many of them mid-flight. And the ones it doesn't destroy, it can track and predict where they'll land, giving troops time to take cover. The sound. Soldiers called it the voice of God. That distinctive brrr-t sound, but echoing across the base at night. You'd hear the boom of a distant mortar launch, then 10 seconds of silence. Then, brrr-t, and you'd know CRAM just saved your life. It's still in use today, protecting bases in the Middle East, guarding against drone attacks, a naval weapons system that became the guardian angel of ground troops. Phalanx has been in service since 1980, 44 years, and it's still being upgraded. The latest version, Block 1B, can engage surface targets, not just missiles and aircraft, small boats, drones, anything threatening the ship. It has an electro-optical sensor that can identify targets visually. This helps reduce false alarms. Phalanx can see the difference between a missile and a seagull now, but there's a new threat. And Phalanx might not be enough. Hypersonic missiles. Mach 5 or faster. Maneuvering unpredictably, they cover miles per second. Against a hypersonic missile, even Phalanx's 2-second reaction time might be too slow. By the time it detects, tracks, and fires, the missile is already past the effective engagement range. The Navy is developing new systems, directed energy weapons, lasers, railguns, systems that fire at the speed of light with no travel time. But for now, Phalanx is still the standard, still the last line of defense, still the system you hope you never need but are grateful to have. And there's still the ethical question. Should a machine be allowed to kill autonomously? Phalanx doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't have a human in the loop. In automatic mode, it identifies a threat and destroys it, all on its own. The Navy's answer: against a missile traveling at 600 miles per hour, 20 feet above the water, there's no time for debate. You give the machine the authority to protect itself, or you accept that your ship might die while you're thinking about it. It's the same dilemma as Aegis: speed versus control, survival versus ethics. And for 44 years, the Navy has chosen survival. 900 Phalanx systems protecting ships in 24 navies worldwide. Thousands of threat engagements. Dozens of confirmed kills. 0 friendly ships lost to missile attack when Phalanx was active and operational. It's not the most advanced system anymore. It's not the longest range, it's not the most precise, but it's the last chance. When Aegis misses, when standard missiles miss, when everything else fails, Phalanx is the robot standing between you and a missile doing Mach 0.9, and it has 4.5 seconds to save your life. Brrr-T. The last sound the missile hears. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, check out our Aegis video to see the bigger defensive picture, or our A-10 Warthog video to hear more about the BRRT sound. Subscribe for more defense technology deep dives, and drop a comment. Should autonomous weapons like Phalanx be allowed to fire without human approval? Or is that a line we shouldn't cross?